Hey, good there. Welcome to Reality Check Podcast. We're here because the house students have come to me and they wanted to share the information that they've gained in the last few years. How important it is to ask people for help. How important it is to get advice, to be able to, not always think they can do it on their own, but be able to go to someone that they can look up to and ask for advice. And they've received that in so many different ways. And I remember when you hired me a few years ago, the first thing you said to me is, I want the kids to have someone that they could go to because I have someone that I go to, somebody I speak to, a coach that helps me become a better principal. Most kids think a principal is a person who, they just made it and that's it, they're at the top. But it's a great model for the kids that they have someone who, even on the top, always trying to become greater and better. So if you could explain about the person you go to and, who do you go to for help and type of questions.
Sure.
Yes.
Sure, thanks for asking. First of all, thank you, Dr. Stern. Thank you, boys. I'm honored to be a part of this podcast, and I'm so impressed that you even want to talk about this topic. So, yes, like you said, it's totally true. I have a coach, I guess you call it a leadership coach. Her name is Jane Talbot-Feld-Cohen. I've been working with her now over 8 years. I originally started working with her when I was just becoming the head of school at the Katz Hill School of Boca Raton, school I used to work for in Florida. And the way I kind of came to it was I knew I was just becoming a principal for the first time or head of school. And I knew that there are times that, it's hard to just navigate difficult situations. Hard things come up all the time, difficult questions, and dealing with people. And plenty of people told me that one of the best things you could do is have a coach. And what a coach means is someone who doesn't just help you solve problems, that sometimes people call consulting. More of a person who helps you be a better you, a better version of yourself. So that way you could, let's say, handle conflict better or handle difficult changes better. They help you to better understand you so that you can be the best at what you could be. And one thing that particularly inspired me to a point that you made, not only is it that people who, let's say, maybe grow to some kind of leadership position no longer need a coach. I would actually almost argue it's the opposite that's true. The more you learn and the more you grow, the more you actually realize you need a coach. And I also found out that some of not that I'm one of them, but one of all of the, or many of the top CEOs of the biggest and most successful companies on planet Earth, guess what? They have coaches.
It's amazing.
What types of things do you work on with your coach that may help others?
That's a great question. So one key example, something that I personally do a lot is, I have a whole leadership team and a lot of teachers that I'm technically supervising and work with. And very often I have to have really difficult conversations. It's not easy to tell a person that you really like or care about that they're doing something, let's say, that's bothering you, or they're doing something that's wrong, or they could be better at something. That never always, it doesn't feel good, or it's hard to say that to someone and give them really honest, candid feedback. So often with my coach, I work on that. I will role play with her, and I'll tell her what the situation is, and she'll usually help me navigate that conversation and talk about what it is that's bothering me and what do I think that other person's doing, so that I could properly articulate to that person or help them to understand what it is that they can be doing better. That's probably one of the most common.
What's amazing is these are the type of questions the kids are asking also. How do they have difficult questions with each other? How do they, and we're in a world of texting.
Conflict.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so that's, I would say, a big topic.
Did you always have a coach? If not, what inspired you to get one?
Yeah, so it was this, starting out as a new head of school was really probably the impetus. That's what really pushed me over the edge to get somebody.
How about before that? Did you have people you would speak to? Or
Yeah, I had I would say I had a mentor. The person that I worked for when I was a principal, my head of school was a man named Rabbi Samuel Levine, and he was amazing. And he really, although he may not have been called my coach or my mentor, he was my boss, but he really acted in that way. He was a person who wouldn't just give me the easy answers and just do everything for me. He would let me do the hard work. He would help me in advance of the situation, but he knew that ultimately, I had to get on the court, just like in real life, right? In sports. We all understand that people have coaches, right? A coach isn't really a weird thing when you think about it. Usually the players are better than the coach at whatever game, right, they may be playing,
Sure.
but it doesn't mean they don't need a coach.
Amazing.
But the coach's job is not there to get on the court with them. It's to help guide them so that when they get on the court, they do what they
I
need
think
to
that's
do.
amazing. A lot of people don't realize that. It doesn't mean the coach is better than you in that area. You see that sports players, they have coaches. Doesn't mean the coaches are better than you.
Sometimes often coaches are former players, but sometimes they're not.
Right.
Or sometimes they didn't make it big in the pros, but yet it's a specific talent.
Do you have teachers coming to you for advice, even outside of the educational, just how to deal with other teachers, how to deal with students?
All the time. All the time. I would say it's one of the most common things that I deal with is people coming to me and trying to navigate difficult situations.
Right.
We live in a world where we want to do the best that we could do. We also really care about customer service and treating people well. And you don't want people, let's face it, no one likes when someone's angry at you. So you can't just be like, hey, I think you're doing a bad job, fix it. That won't be okay. That'll ruin our relationship. So you want to do things in a way where the relationship not only doesn't crumble, it actually is built stronger through proper dialogue, healthy relationships, so with friends and stuff, that could work wonders.
That's great.
Yeah. Do you think it's a good idea for everyone to have someone to speak up to and ask for advice?
1000%. I think everyone, no matter who you are, man, woman, child, regardless of what you do in any profession, it's really important to have someone to talk things out with, because your own perspective is very often skewed. You're seeing things the way you're seeing them because your ego, your inside, you're trying to protect yourself. You don't want to bring hurt upon yourself, so you often don't really see things in the way that they actually are. And just talking things out with people really helps.
That's amazing. I was going to say myself also, I can give advice to people, but when it comes to your own family, your own personal situation, it's very hard to see because you have a bias. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So were you ever embarrassed to admit that you had a coach?
It's a really interesting question. Actually, no. I don't think ever in my adult life, once I started having the coach, I don't think I was ever embarrassed to share it. I think I probably would have been embarrassed in my younger years, like if I'm being totally honest and vulnerable. Like maybe when I was younger, if someone like pushed me to do it, I might have been like, oh yeah, that's a little embarrassing. But I think as I, got older and more mature, I started realizing that there's nothing to be embarrassed about. In fact, quite the opposite. It's something to be proud of. And I found that when I tell people, they admire it. They go, oh wow, that's like so great that you do that. Never one time has a person been like, oh, do you really need that? Like, is it really necessary? Or like, aren't you better than that? It's actually never happened to me. At least in the last, 8 years.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to ask for help or advice?
Whoa, that's a big one. Yeah, that's definitely true. I think people make sometimes an assumption that asking for advice means a lacking in them. Like it means like that they don't know something or they can't do something on their own. But if you really think about it, most of the greatest projects or the greatest teams, they all do things together. And the goal is not to be able to do something on your own. So I think people somehow think, totally erroneously, it's just not true. They think that asking for help somehow is like admitting a weakness. I believe that it's exactly the opposite. It's actually a strength to ask for help.
What motivates you day in and day out that makes you feel successful or accomplished?
Also, these are great questions. I really feel very good and very blessed. I feel like I'm engaged in avodas Hashem. I feel like I'm engaged in holy work. I feel very honored and privileged that I get to work in a Jewish school with all of these, wonderful, beautiful kids who are learning and growing, and I feel like I'm serving the community and serving the parents. And yeah, I just feel like I'm doing really important work. I know I can't do it alone, and I know my job is really to serve others, but that motivates me. It makes me, feel good to know that I want to kind of get up the next day and do the best that I could do, even though I know I'm going to make mistakes and I know I'm going to need to ask for help. But I would say that really is what motivates me. I feel blessed to enjoy my work.
Amazing. I think we did an amazing job in how taking away that stigma of asking for help, growing, learning from people. The staff here is unbelievable. There's still kids out there that are struggling with things. You know, we all do. We all have things working on, and I see they come to me. How can I ask my Rabbi? How can I ask my principal? What advice can you give those kids that are still feeling a little bit embarrassed or feel a little bit vulnerable about asking an adult or somebody else or even a friend about advice? What advice would you give them?
Just do it. That famous slogan. Obviously, that's much easier said than done. But I would tell any young person, as I've told my own children, is the most successful people out there on earth are all asking for help. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. It's normal, it's human. Hashem didn't design us or design the world in a way that we're meant to just do everything alone. We're meant to have different roles, different jobs, even in our families, different people have different roles. And it's not meant to be do it yourself. It's like life is a team sport. And I think when you tell that to a kid and they actually do it and they ask for the help and they realize, you know, sometimes they'll still be scared. Honestly, sometimes people just are nervous about doing things and they feel bad about it. But once you experiment doing it and you realize, oh, that was actually really helpful. Like one classic example, it used to be like very, when I was a kid, I remember being like embarrassing to like go talk to a therapist. What you do for a living, Dr. Stern. And that was considered like, oh, if you were going, oh, you didn't want to like admit that. And then as I got older, I realized, wait, that's nothing embarrassing. And I've noticed kids actually speak about it more openly. And just like when someone has to go to a doctor sometimes when they have an injury, sometimes to talk out important issues, you of course should go to talk to a therapist, a psychologist, because they help you talk things out. You get help for really important things. Like, why shouldn't we do it? It's almost like, what's the reason you wouldn't ask for help? So I think the key is they have to like take that step forward, try it out, and they usually realize there was really nothing to be embarrassed of in the first place. But I will be honest, I know it's hard for people. I don't mean to make it sound like it's easy, and there's probably always going to be something a little challenging about that.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
This was great, guys. I really enjoyed the talk, and
Thank you.
we can continue the conversation anytime.
Thank you very much. Isn't that great? That was an amazing podcast.
That was really
It was, to me, it was so inspiring to hear from Rabbi Englander, to hear that he himself went to someone to get coaching and to become a better person. There's so many kids that I see looking for someone to ask for help, to go to someone, but they just don't have that courage to do it. And I think to see somebody who made it so high in his career, we see so many athletes and so many other people that some of them have the courage to and some they don't. I think nowadays people feel a lot more comfortable to be able to do that. How many times do we see kids walking by the office and like thinking, should I go in, should I not go in? But once they do go in, I see like a certain load off their shoulders, and it's really amazing. I think everyone could be inspired from this. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time at Reality Check Podcast.